Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk about your home recording studio. Today we're going to talk about something that I think any home recording studio needs in it. Now it's not a piece of cool gear with all the blinky lights and the faders and the knobs and everything, but it's very indispensable in my opinion nonetheless. I'm talking about Tape Op Magazine. Now Tape Op Magazine is a free magazine that you can subscribe to. Free in the US. I think that if you live outside of the US, there's a small fee for it just to offset the cost of getting it to you. Now, it's a print and digital magazine that I think if you're watching this channel or other channels like it, you're into recording and the gear and the techniques and the personalities, then I have a feeling this is going to be right up your alley. Now, Tape Op is owned and operated and edited by Mr. Larry Crane. And he may be a familiar name to you, he may not. He's just like a super nice guy. I've seen a few interviews with him. He owns Jackpot Studios in Portland, Oregon. And he has worked with a lot of names that I definitely know. People like Steve Malkmus, Cat Power, Slater Kinney, The Decemberists, M. Ward, and Elliott Smith. He actually did a couple of his albums. Death Cab for Cutie, The Thermals. These are all artists that I listened to, back 10 years ago, and all artists that mean a lot to me. So it's really kind of cool to get to know one of the personalities behind the sounds that you hear. If you want to learn a little bit more about Larry, I'll link in the description below. There's a great interview, hour-long interview that Warren Hewitt did with Larry Crane a couple of years ago. And they just get on Skype and chat for a couple hours and talk about Tape Op and the origins and Larry and his history and his studio. So definitely go check that out. I really like that Tape Op. It's really a true grassroots story. Larry started it just doing hand Xeroxed copies and stapling them together himself and hand distributing it to studios and artists and everything. And now they distribute over 70,000 copies of each issue, which is really cool. As I mentioned, there are print and digital versions available. So when you subscribe, as each issue comes out, you'll get immediate access to the digital version, and then eventually the print version will show up in your mailbox. Now it comes out bi-monthly, so every other month. So there's 6 issues every year. It is definitely ad supported, and as you start to kind of browse through it, you'll definitely get that impression pretty quickly. There's a lot of ads in it, but really, if you're watching this channel, others like it, if you're into recording, all of the advertising is so specifically targeted, and it's all by brands that you're familiar with, maybe you're not familiar with. It's just full of cool gear, the ads are. So while normally ads kind of bug me to death, in this case, I think it's actually interesting to see what all's out there. You just kind of drool over some stuff that you don't have or you can't afford. Now, the focus of the magazine is definitely the interviews, these in-depth, long-form interviews with big names that you might be familiar with, or you might get to learn some new big names and upcoming artists and engineers and producers, studio owners. And they really, especially on their website in their About Us section, describe how they really focus on the creative process. They try not to just be a gear magazine, and they definitely do a good job of that. Now, while it's not a gear magazine, but there are several pages in every issue that are dedicated to gear reviews. And they have some very unbiased and honest gear reviews. If they like something, they'll say so. If they don't, they'll say so. They all come from a really well-informed kind of perspective. And after reading one of the reviews, I definitely feel like I have a pretty darn good impression of how this piece of gear behaves, what it does, and whether it's any good or not, whether it's right for me. Now, Tape Op does actually have a couple of companion pieces. Now, I'd mentioned that not only there's the print edition, but also the digital edition. They also have a website, which you can take a look at. And the website is, even if you're not a subscriber, the website's just a great resource, a fun read. There's all sorts of articles. There's some blogs. There's some gear reviews and interviews. There's some good stuff. So definitely go check it out at tapeop.com. And you can go click on the subscribe button up here and give you some information about how to get your subscription started if you are so inclined. Now, the other companion piece is the Tape Op podcast. If you're into podcasts at all, I really like listening to podcasts on my commute to work and back. And they're all interviews with just some huge names, some names that you would recognize. I've listened to Tape Op podcasts with Jack White, with Glenn Johns, Steve Albini, all sorts of names that you know and love. I do have to say that the early episodes, I think they just started it maybe last year, I think. So it's still relatively young. And in those first few episodes, they were definitely kind of rough. The audio quality wasn't great, but they all came with a disclaimer that they were recorded not with the intention to release to the public, but really they were just recorded in order to transcribe those interviews into articles into the magazine. So they were never really intended for public consumption or anything, but they're still just really interesting. Now, in the later episodes, the more recent episodes, I think it's come a long way. It sounds really good. You can hear the interviewer and the interviewee very clearly. And there's just some really interesting things these people have to say. You get to know the personalities behind the mixing board, kind of. So definitely take a quick look, head over to the website, get subscribed if you want. It's totally free if you're in the US, and I'm not exactly sure what it costs outside of the US, but it couldn't be that much. I think it's a great resource to have. Just some entertaining reading. Go check out the podcast. Go listen to a couple of those. I think that if you're into recording, if you're into audio, I think you'll really enjoy it. And I don't see a whole lot of stuff on YouTube about tape op. So I just wanted to kind of do like a public service announcement here and just bring it to your attention just in case you'd be interested in subscribing to something like this. All right, well, that's going to do it for me this time, and I will see you guys next time.